we do have a special guest coming on today. And, one of the videos that he made and kind of the reason why we reached out was the autonomous vehicles, the Waymos, soon to be the unicorns, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to be getting cases of cones and putting them into LA, Austin, Atlanta, San Francisco, and any other place that they are. So for those drivers in those areas, when you see a case of cones sitting on the sidewalk, you just grab one, plop it on that thing, let it become a little unicorn. And with that being said, let's bring on Phil. Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you?
So Black Friday, Chris, coming up. So you can buy all those cones for cheap, buddy.
Yeah.
Black Friday.
I had never heard it described as a unicorn before. That really kind of puts a smile on my face, the idea of it actually.
They look like a unicorn. Haven't you seen those pictures? They look like a unicorn.
Now that you say it, I have seen that for sure.
Yeah. Well, Phil, welcome to Show Me the Money. How are you, sir?
Thank you very much for having me on. I'm doing great.
Absolutely. So Phil has a YouTube channel called Maxinomics. Love it. It's like about economics. Does it come from Maximum Economics, or how did you come up with that?
It's a great question. It's just kind of one of those names that spawned from, like Maximum Economics or Economics. Was just looking for a name that encapsulated talking about all sorts of different business and economic stuff. That was just catchy, and that's what sprung up.
It's like stagflation.
It conveys the right thing. Yeah.
Right. No, I got the right thing. And he's also part of a crew at MoringBrew. So both links are on the show notes. Please go check it out and please subscribe. I mean, look, he does great videos, great editing, and he's here because of his last video. So I watched it, of course, and I'm like, okay, that's cool. Now, as I said to you during, while we were emailing back and forth, 99.9% of the people here, a couple hundred here so far, and watching later are rideshare drivers, right? So we are concerned as rideshare drivers, first of all, are we getting replaced with these things, right? And look, I've done a few rides, way more rides, I have my doubts about it, especially as far as economics is concerned, right? Because it doesn't kind of make sense to do $10 trips with a $150,000 Jaguar. You know what I mean? I don't know. But so please go check that video out. And the title of that video was, what will Uber do with that 25 billion they're going to save when autonomous vehicles show up? I'm going like, okay, well, let's get into it. What do you think Uber is going to do? Or, first of all, do you think we're going to get replaced? All of us. We're like, there's 3-4 million Uber drivers in the US.
No, for sure. I don't think that will be the case, or at the very least for a long period of time. The time it will take to build these vehicles, to scale them, to get them to be moving outside of just the main city centers is going to be a long road. And importantly, I think Uber and Lyft play a critical function in balancing the market and making sure that there's always somebody there to drive somebody from point A to point B. I think that at the moment, there's less than 1,000 Waymos in the United States, and that number is going to go up, but it's still a very small fraction. I don't think that these are going to completely replace human drivers. I don't really think that's what everybody wants either. I think that where there's most, and I guess if there's bad news, and I realize the audience that I'm talking to, and I don't want to pull my words, I want to speak what I actually think. So I think the most danger really is in kind of the big city centers. Outside of the city centers, in the smaller towns, in the suburbs, in towns that aren't really going to be able to accommodate a lot of autonomous vehicles, that's where Uber and Lyft drivers will be least affected. But even those that are in the major cities, it's going to take a very long time. Like it's going to take it's in 5 cities now. It will take 3 or 4 years for them to put another 10,000 Waymos on the road. And that's still just a fraction of the demand. So I think really what happens, actually, if you're curious on the trajectory and how this affects Uber drivers, like out of the gate, as this starts to ramp up and these cars start to come onto the Uber platform and the Lyft platform, and even on their own platform, is the drivers that have the lowest ranking and the lowest rating on the apps will probably be offered less rides. That's probably the first group of people to be affected. And in some ways, that is certainly bad for that group of people. In some ways, it's good for the consumers. But in other ways, for the best drivers, it's probably a good thing. I think that there could actually be, if you're a top-rated Uber driver, I think that you could actually end up with a little bit more business at a higher rate than otherwise, just because of what's expected of somebody when they order a human driver on the Uber and Lyft platform. So if you're really good, I think that there's a potential for there to be benefit in the medium term.
Okay, well, I don't know how many rideshare drivers you personally know, right? So I've been on their platform for 8 years. So just, it's not a correction on you, but there's something called throttling, Phil. Uber and Lyft throttle, just like throttling your internet when a lot of people, just go online at the same time in your neighborhood, they kind of throttle it slowed everything down, right?
Yeah.
Uber and Lyft throttle drivers. Even I am a 496 driver after 10,000 trips in 8 years. So when I have an incentive coming up, or when I'm about to finish one of my incentives or call quests, the last few hours, Uber and Lyft both will throttle me and will not send me any trips, regardless of how good of a driver I am. So the fact that maybe there is a kind of a correlation there may be that the lowest rated drivers are not going to get trips and this and that's already happening today. We're used to all that stuff. So bring it on as far as the Waymos are concerned. But I had Alex Kantrowitz on a few months ago. We talked nothing but unit economics. So let's talk a little bit about unit economics of this thing. Obviously, it's upside down. It doesn't make sense at the moment. Even if they put 10,000 cars out there, I don't know if it's going to make sense. As you know, the Uber and Lyft and a lot of these gig companies are low asset, maybe zero asset business models, right? They don't even own their service probably. They're probably renting some AWS server somewhere. So I'm going, okay, so to Waymo, this is a massively capital intensive business, right? To put 10,000 Jaguars, or I heard now that they're going to go with the Ioniq 6, I guess, is billions of dollars, right? How does that make sense? Do you think the unit economics makes sense in any of this, even with 10,000 cars? That's as far as scale is concerned.
I do. I honestly do think that the unit economics end up making sense at the small scale that it is happening right now. I do not think the unit economics make sense. But of course, when you see the big numbers of how much money Waymo has lost or how much money Google is pouring into it, a lot of it is obviously because they just don't have enough cars on the road to pull in revenue to offset the cost. So while there is a hardware cost here, and hardware is always one of the businesses that investors are looking at, like, do I really want to put a ton of CapEx into a hard asset that's going to depreciate over time? Most of this, I do think, turns to profit once you get to a certain scale. And importantly, as you see the sensor costs come down, and if maybe you move off the Jaguar platform to a cheaper Hyundai platform, if you see the price of these things come down, they get far more competitive. And I think we talked before the show a little bit about this. One of the big things that's in the unit economic cost of Waymo and Uber is insurance. Insurance is like a huge deal. It's such a big cost across a variety of different industries. And I think that what ends up happening actually with Waymo and these other companies is because it's all one car, because it's all software, because it will be so obviously transparent to the insurance companies. I think the cost to insure these vehicles, at least in certain areas, will be cheaper than a human, because it's what an insurance company wants, when an actuary wants. They want data. They want to be able to see and model a perfect probabilistic scenario. And that's what Waymo will give them. So I actually think the insurance cost ends up coming down over time, not up front, but over time. And because of that, a lot of the insurance costs will come down. When you ramp this up to 10, 20, 50,000 cars, I do think the unit economics turn positive. Even if they don't turn positive on a per mile or a per ride basis for just transporting someone from point A to point B, all the ancillary services or the tangential services of selling advertising inside the car or selling other services and things to people that get in a Waymo or an autonomous vehicle, I think are too attractive for businesses like Google or an Uber for this to not end up working on a unit economic basis.
Okay, if I may push back on that a little bit. Okay, so let's look at Uber and let's look at Lyft. Okay, so Uber has been around and Lyft have been around for 12 years or so. And then they reached this massive scale, literally put $35 billion on fire to create this amazing marketplace, right? Without owning the cars, without owning any assets, right? Uber just now is turning profitable, and that's because they charge as much as they can with certain elasticity, and they pay as little as they can to the drivers through the wonderful algorithms that they run, okay? And Lyft still hasn't made a red cent in rideshare. So as far as I know, and I know it reasonably well, rideshare is a horrible business to be in. It's horrible. Now, if you can't make money without owning the cars, how are they going to make money? How's Google going to make money to justify that tens of billions of dollars to put those cars? And FYI, even if they put, I know they're up to 150,000 trips a week now, in those 4 or 5 cities. Uber does 1.2 million trips per hour, okay, globally, every hour, 7 days a week. So what would you say to that when I push back a little bit and say, without owning the cars, they can't make any money? How are they going to make money, even if these cars get scaled up and then they come down to $50,000, $60,000 a piece as opposed to 150,000?
So the way I would look at this is that by unifying the entire platform, and all costs end up being the same across these vehicles, and being able to optimize down to, the tires that go on a car, I do think that it becomes easier to make money moving someone from point A to point B, as opposed to, and here's as opposed to luring drivers out onto the road that are human with their cars and having to say, hey, we'll pay you X amount to come bring your vehicle onto the road. All of the rough edges that are a part of rideshare that make it so difficult, having to incentivize people to come onto the road, end up becoming things that you can sand the edges down on for an autonomous vehicle. If you have a fleet of autonomous vehicles, I'm not in the camp that you need to have these things running 24/7 in order to offer service across an entire city. You just need to hit a particular mark. And what you don't have to do is, you don't have to do surge pricing. Insurance costs come down when you can offer to an insurance company. I think that we come back to the insurance company. We'll probably do this a couple of times. When you can say to an insurance company, we have a fleet of 50,000 of the same exact cars operating in climates that are all pretty much the same. Here's the data on it. And when you can give that to an insurance company would love to take that business, and they would love to offer insurance on something that they can really see the risk around. So when you can do everything it is like boring, just because you don't get the variety of the human experience.
Well,
but
look, I mean, the rideshare is a very low margin business. It's a fact. It's just, but in your video, you correctly stated that your numbers come from 30 cities that Uber paid out $25 billion to their drivers. So that $25 billion could be theirs if they eliminate the drivers to a certain degree. So I took the liberty of taking a couple of screenshots from your video, and I'm going to put it up.
Can I just clarify
and explain those?
The 25 billion. All right. Yeah, go ahead. I was going to say the 25 billion, make it clear in the video that it goes to the driver and their vehicle. Because I think when we think about the driver, a lot of times people don't consider that the driver and the vehicle are the same thing.
Okay, Chris, can you put that up, the slide number 2? All right. So this is from your video, right? Uber's operational cost, $3.20 a mile, $2.20 a mile goes to the driver, $1 a mile. So you're going to get some flack on this one. $2.20 a mile. We wish $2.20 a mile went to the driver. Let me tell you what my rate card was in Los Angeles before upfront fares, Phil. I'll actually, I'll have you take a guess. I drive in Los Angeles, right? Before upfront fares, which is completely separated, what the rider pays from what the driver receives, we had a rate card like cabs, right? Time and distance, basically. That's how the algo used to run. What do you think the algo would pay me in Los Angeles, probably as high in living costs as anywhere, We were down to, what do you think? I was down to, I'll give it to you. We were down to 60 cents a mile, which is 7 cents under the IRS deduction, and 21 cents a minute. That's what I used to get paid on trips that had no surge. So 220 a mile. I wish I would get 220 a mile. I would accept every single trip. That's why my acceptance rate is like single digits, 6%. I decline all the trash that they send me these days, and so does 300 of you now here watching. How did you come up with this number? The 220 a mile goes to the driver, and one goes to Uber.
And this will be where the flack comes from for sure,
Yeah.
because Uber's stated take rate is 29.7%. But, and I really want to be clear here, is when I say goes to the driver and the yellow bar represents $2.20 per mile, the experience from the driver, from a variety of commenters and people I've talked to, isn't that experience. But really what the 220 per mile represents is what Uber's cost of acquiring the driver and the vehicle are, including insurance. So even if that number doesn't go to the driver, Uber's cost to get that unit of transportation onto the road costs them $2.20 per mile. So in the video, I say they can whittle that down. That's their incentive.
I think you could switch those two. I think $1 goes to the driver and 220 goes to Uber. And by the way, Uber's operational costs, I don't know what they do with 33,000 people there, but they do something, obviously. Yeah, we don't. I think there's one city that's pretty close to these offers, which is Seattle, up in Washington State, and those drivers get paid really, really well. But the business, look, 8 years ago, I used to get paid $1.40 a mile and 40 cents a minute in LA. And with all the inflation and everything else, Phil, in 8 years, I was down to 60 cents a mile and 21 cents a minute, right? So 50% cut, while all my costs due to inflation had gone up 40, 50, 60% over the last 8 years. So as drivers, obviously we complain about money because we're not making money. I mean, it's just ridiculous at the moment. But and this actually caught my eye. So going with the same thing, right? You figured this I agree with this part, that there is that blue part where you circled on your video, that 70 cents times Uber did last quarter, by the way, 2.9 billion trips. Those are global numbers, but a bulk of it, probably more, about 50% of it, is in the US. Mm-hmm. And that's a lot of money. So somehow, if everything remained the same, that 70 cents is going to get split between Uber and Waymo somewhere, and that's a lot of money on 2.9 billion trips, even on 1 billion trips, right, per quarter. So this is where you see that 70 cents going potentially to Uber or Waymo, or split somewhere, or how do you think it's going to work out?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think it's going to be difficult to forecast exactly which direction this is going to go in, because it's going to be a negotiation between the two companies. One, Uber is going to ask themselves, can we actually move 70% off of the remaining, off of that number? Waymo is going to look at this and say, can we turn a profit at this amount? So they'll fight over this amount. The question is really, I think, whether or not Waymo and Uber end up being in a partnership long-term. Is Waymo going to run its own app, like it's doing in 3 cities, or is it going to end up on the Uber platform where Uber is going to pay at a per mile fee? If Waymo decides that the distribution that Uber offers is more important, more of this share is going to go to Uber. If Waymo can manage to run its own app, then they're going to collect more of it. Ultimately, though, at least in the midterm, let's call it 5 years, I think it's going to be very difficult for Waymo to not be on the Uber app in the major cities. The distribution that Uber offers and the ability for Uber to say, all right, this Waymo vehicle is taking 15 minutes to get here. We have a top-rated Uber driver that's ready in 2 minutes. I think that gives the hand to Uber for capturing more of that value over the next 5 years. How it plays out over the long run, I think is a little bit harder, a little bit more fuzzy to forecast. So at the moment, I lean that more of this share goes to Uber than it does to Waymo. How much of that exactly, I think, is still up in the air.
Okay. And the thing with that is that at the moment, see, I'm looking at this, I do quite a bit of consulting with sell-side analysts before every Uber and Lyft quarter. the way I'm looking at this is that 70 cents actually is a lot less than what they're doing now. What they're doing now is they have these two double algorithms running, one on the rider end, one on the driver end. And again, because Lyft is competing, so with certain elasticity, they're charging the rider as much as they can. And they know everything about you, by the way, right? They have asymmetric information advantage on you.
Uber's
and
doing
they also know everything about the driver, right? Yeah. So what the algo is doing is taking the take rate, as we call it in our industry, and drivers has gone up to 40, 50, 60% now, right? So that's how Uber has become profitable. It's not a magic, formula that they do. They charge as much as they can, pay as little as they can. And that 70 cents, I think, is low for the fact that now they have free reign. They can charge whatever they want to a point, and they pay as little as they can. And that take rate, I believe, is going to be more than 70 cents, but that remains to be seen, actually.
One thing I always say is work smarter, not harder. If you aren't using the Solo app, then you may be working harder. So let's change that. Download the app, link your accounts where you can manage your income, track your expenses, and project your taxes. Not only that, but you can plan by optimizing your time, make more, and even guarantee your daily pay with guaranteed earnings. Download Solo and begin to work smarter, not harder today. Link is in the description. All right, let's get back to it.
And last thing I want to show you is with your pretty face in there. I do agree. This is probably going to benefit Google a little bit more than it does Uber. At the moment, Google needs Uber because Google, Uber has the network, right? But then I think Uber needs Google because of advertising, as you aptly stated in your video. Please go check the video out. It's really, really well done. Like, if I'm going to a bar, the way they can situate, the riders facing each other in the car, the configuration of the car, with flat screens, what kind of advertising they can show. They may show me a Heineken ad while on my way to the bar, and that obviously is going to, influence me to go have a Heineken probably. So there is a lot of ad dollars that I think this is getting done for, because look, I looked at the statistics. 45 minutes each way is spent if I'm working somewhere at a W-2 to work and back from work. If I can eliminate that 45 minutes, personally speaking, I'm going to gain an hour and a half of productivity as a human to do anything I want if I'm in a driverless car, right? That means I can buy some crap I don't need on Amazon. That means I can, look at my Facebook, or I can be on my laptop doing what I do. I think all this, Phil, my opinion again, but you'll chime in a second, is to increase human productivity, because last time I checked, there was still 24 hours in a day. I don't think you can adjust that. And if I can save myself an hour or two a day of extra productivity going and back to work and from home to work, I think that's what this is all being done. I don't think this is done for rideshare purposes only.
I mean, I would generally agree with that. You think, hold on, I just want to clarify, summarize, make sure. You think that a lot of the AV, the autonomous stuff here, is to increase human productivity. And so you're saying if you can take an AV vehicle, an autonomous vehicle, one way from work, 45 minutes each way, you save an hour and a half. So you can do more. Is that right? Pick that up. And Google's incentive there is you can spend more time browsing the internet, which means there's more advertising. Gotcha. Okay. I have no doubt that that has to be a part of it. I mean, why would Google get involved in Waymo in the first place? This is an advertising business. Like, that's what they do. There's certainly a map component, I'm sure, but the data that Google gets out of this will be incredibly valuable, in addition to having a venue to sell additional advertising. I agree.
Yeah, I think look, I did an interview actually last week about this, the Business Insider. They said, what do you think? Are you threatened by AVs? I'm like, no. Why would I be? Why would I be threatened? I mean, look, there's 1.2 billion 1.2 million trips per hour, Uber is doing. Okay. All right. Well, maybe what they should do with these AVs and Waymos is give all the trash offers to these Waymos to just keep zipping around and maybe pick up all the drunks or whatever, right? And then give us the good trips. You know what I mean? It's like there's 200 of them in LA, I think. Why am I going to be, I don't know how many are there in San Francisco where you are, but I'm not concerned. The market is so huge. Total addressable market is so huge that as a driver, first of all, I don't want to be a driver as a career to start with, right? I mean, we're doing all rideshare to pay a few bills and whatever. But if you're a full-time driver, I'm not going to be concerned about AVs. I really am not.
I think that makes sense. Yeah, the full-time drivers and the people that are on the platform all the time will likely be treated and be fine. I would agree, at least in the medium term, again, 5 years. There is a ton of demand. I saw on the slide when you pulled it up that there is oversaturation, though. And I wanted to ask what you meant by that. You have a topic coming up later in the show,
Yeah.
and you were wondering, and you brought up oversaturation. Is there oversaturation in all markets, would you say, in terms of Uber drivers?
Massive
Turn
oversaturation.
the tables on you and ask a question.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's your turn now. But massive oversaturation. And the reason for that is we do our surveys at the Rideshare Guy. The average lifespan, when I say lifespan, not literally, the average a gig worker or a rideshare driver lasts on the apps is 8 months or less.
Oh, wow.
8 months, right? So that means Uber as a business, or Lyft or DoorDash or whoever they are, they have to replenish this driver base or courier base literally 100% a year, every single year, right? But now what's happening is that oversaturation has something to do with macroeconomic conditions. We know what's going on with inflation. We know how expensive things are.
Sure.
And barriers to entry is so easy to get into this business as a driver, right? I mean, you upload a few documents, you go through a watered down background check, and you're on the road driving, making a couple $100 a weekend. Well, all those people who have regular W-2s, it's not enough. Their incomes are not enough. So they just get into rideshare or get into gig work, some sort of gig work. And that's what's happening, massive oversaturation, especially in major cities. And, so the pie is the same, right? But the mouse to feed off the pie is a lot more mouse. And I know it from my numbers in LA, right? Major city I drive in. And there's something called utilization rate. So meaning out of the 60 minutes, what percentage of the time I'm on a ride in an hour. I used to run about 92, 93%. I'm down to 52% now.
Interesting.
So meaning I'm sitting there waiting for a request. There's literally, Phil, if you should do this test actually. Turn your rider app on, right? On Lyft and Uber. You can look, you don't have to order a trip. You can look at it. You will see literally 8 cars inside your building that you're in right now. There's 8 cars at every corner, every single corner.
I have noticed that. And those are drivers that are waiting to pick up somebody.
Yeah, well, those are 8 that they're showing. It's a lot more, actually, right? Okay. So that's the oversaturation part. So what happens when oversaturation comes? We make less money because the only time we're making money is with a butt in the back seat with the wheels turning. That's the only time we're getting paid. So if my utilization factor is going from 92 to 50%, I'm making 42% less money because there's so many drivers. And this is not a political show, obviously, but then the illegal accounts is a huge problem, right? Huge. And you'll check this. I can get on the dark web and get myself an illegal account like this and drive for Uber, Lyft, DoorDash, whoever I want, right? And that's a huge problem as well. And so we look all into these things as far as oversaturation is concerned. But you're the guest. I'm going to give you the floor for the next couple 3 minutes. Close us up, close your segment up. What else you have coming up? Talk about your channel. We didn't talk about the Morning Brew. What is Morning Brew about?
So Morning Brew is the parent company now to Maxinomics. They bought Maxinomics from me about a year ago now, coming up on the 1-year anniversary of when I joined up with them. And Morning Brew is known largely as a newsletter company. They do a daily newsletter every day. It has like 4.5 million subscribers. It's a really nice product. And that's how they really kind of built their business. They decided to expand a little bit and they wanted to bring in some creator-led brands. Maxinomics was one of the ones that they looked at. So they got in touch with me. They bought me. And now they offer support in a variety of different ways. The YouTube video that you saw, the production behind it, the graphics and the artwork and so forth, I am fortunate enough to have a team from Morning Brew that helps me with that stuff. So it takes some of the load off my work so I can do the research, the writing, the analysis, and we can put out these kind of videos. So that's Morning Brew's role. In terms of Maxinomics, what's coming out, I do think that we have a pretty solid lineup of very interesting topics. Coming out next week, we will be looking at SpaceX and the race for space real estate, a very hot topic. And I think that one that is largely not completely understood, or people don't get the scale of what's happening in space at this point in time. And so we're going to dive into that topic. It is very interesting. It's going to be a great video. I'm excited to bring it out across with a bunch of short form topics as well. So that's what's coming out next. And then for me, I mean, I'm always going to have my head in the data or reading some type of report. So you can find me on Twitter, espousing the little thoughts while all the big thoughts come out in video.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, please follow Phil on Twitter, but also check out the videos. They're really, really well done. And look, if you maybe one day we collaborate, we'll do a driver related video. Maybe we'll just get in a car with a driver, drive for a whole shift, 8 hours, what that driver goes through. Because, you know, More Perfect Union took a chance with one of those videos. It just hit like 4.4 million views. So, you know, the driver story is something that is not told really, because nobody cares. We're just a number, you know, but because the golden goose that lays the golden egg is the rider. That's there. You're paying the bills. Nobody cares about the driver, but we care. That's why, you know, we just hit our 200,000 subscriber mark last week, actually. So, you know, we're drivers advocates. We're always here for the driver. So if you're ever going to do something like that, please ring us up. I'll be happy to collaborate with you.
Congratulations on the 200,000. You guys are doing fantastic work. Well earned. And yeah, we will definitely be in touch. Hopefully we got a video that we can put out in that realm. So yeah, absolutely.
All right, great. Well, thank you for coming on. Much appreciated. Please go check it out. Seriously, it's one of my favorite YouTube channels. And, you know, look, man, it is what it is, right? People are driving in record numbers, Phil. There's 7.5 million Uber drivers globally. There's more than 50% more than last year over year. Why are all these people driving if things are so bad? That's because they need cash.
Right.
That's why we're driving.
That's
but,
a good
Phil, always tip your driver, Phil. Always tip your driver if you take an Uber or Lyft. I'm
a big tipper. I learned a lot from this conversation. This was great. I really appreciate you having me on. And I agree. Tip your driver.
Absolutely. Thank you. Much appreciated. See you soon.
Thanks, Sergio. Bye, Chris.
All right. Thanks for watching. That short little clip was from our live stream, Show Me the Money Club with Sergio and myself. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. Make sure you subscribe, turn on all notifications so you'll be notified when we go live, as well as all of our awesome content. Make sure to check out this video right here, which will take you to the entire live stream, or check out this video right there. All right, drive smart, everyone.